We're living in very dangerous times, and as we look across the world with war here on our continent in Europe, with the tremendous aggression that we're seeing across the Middle East, with the hand of Iran so present in the Middle East, and with this rising conflict in Sudan and now in Syria, there is one country whose hand is in so much of it, and that is Russia. And that is why, as we meet here discussing these important issues, it's hugely important that we step up defence spending across NATO allies particularly. In the United Kingdom, we are at 2.3%, heading to 2.5% as soon as we can get there. And we urge all allies across the NATO family to get serious about defence spending. All of our populations require us to understand the tremendous security challenges that we are facing at this time. The time to act is now.
Concerning the situation in South Korea.
And Iran is playing in the region, getting money from Russia, which is then used to fuel the efforts by Hamas and Hezbollah to destabilize the region. But of course also the situation in Syria itself was discussed, and the overall Middle East. And last night we had our dinner together with Kaja Kallas of the European Union, but also the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Andriy Sybiu. And it was a very good dinner. We discussed what we can do collectively to make sure that one, Ukraine has the air defense it needs, also to protect its critical infrastructure and energy infrastructure. And secondly, how to make sure that Ukraine will get to a position of strength so that then Ukraine can start talks about its future in the region.
Okay, we'll start over here on the right, please. Yeah.
This is Mohammed with Al Ittihad. Could you please, NATO's meeting with His Majesty King Abdullah comes at a very interesting time with escalating tensions in the Middle East, including in Syria. Could you please provide more insights into the outcomes of the meeting and what plans do you have for increased engagements with Jordan and ICI partners? Thank you.
This was a great occasion for us to again sit down with His Majesty. Of course, he is a great friend of NATO. He has been here many times before. We are opening, as you know, a NATO liaison office in Amman. Graciously made possible by Jordan, and to listen to his insights on what is happening in the region, not just in Jordan and in the Middle East, but also the impact all of this has, for example, on North Africa and also on Syria. That was extremely helpful. Foreign ministers were able to ask questions. So this was a good debate, a good discussion, not aimed at concrete decisions, but really to learn from him, to get his insights. And again, we were all really very happy that he was there and was willing to do this.
Okay, to the gentleman over there, please.
Euronews, Georgia. Sir, it is alleged that Russian hybrid actions had effect on Georgia's election and also on Moldova. And could you share your opinion regarding to this subject? And what do you think, how can NATO counter these Russian hybrid attacks, which aims also NATO countries and also neighbors and partners of NATO?
No, clearly we condemn every interference in the free elections in NATO countries. We're also very worried, of course, of what happened in Moldova. We are very happy about the outcome, that still the election was taking place. Clearly there was interference, but at the same time the Moldovan authorities were able to conduct the elections in line with their democratic principles. On Georgia, of course, our worry, of course, is on what is happening in Georgia itself. We are really following the events. We very much encourage Georgia to come back and go back on its path of Euro-Atlantic integration with the European Union, with NATO. But we are really worried and following the events taking place in Georgia. And when it comes to election interference from anyone, that is unacceptable.
Okay, one question. The gentleman to the right, please, with the blue scarf, and then ANP after that. Thank you. Go ahead. Please introduce yourself before you ask a question.
Secretary General, good morning. Finlay Duncan from DW.
How
concerned are you about what's happening in South Korea at the moment, a key Indo-Pacific ally for NATO?
Well, obviously we are following events. South Korea is part of our Indo-Pacific partnership with South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and that means that we are very much interested in how this will develop. But I'm not going to comment on internal South Korean on the internal South Korean situation.
Okay, ANP.
South Korea again. Leading a democratic alliance, is it necessary to condemn undemocratic behavior from an ally, an important ally like South Korea?
Yes, of course, they are not part of NATO, but they are a very important friend of us. We work very closely together in the partnership, together also with Japan, Australia and New Zealand. And that means that we are following step by step and from moment to moment what is happening. But at this moment, I do not want to comment. Let's first see how the Koreans are able to cope with this situation. And if necessary, there might be further comments later.
Okay, thank you very much. The lady with the red scarf.
From ARD. How concerned are you that the political chaos in South Korea might be beneficial to China to actually bring even more instability to the region?
Again, what we know is what you know and what we see on television. We are really following the events in the Republic of Korea and South Korea step by step, and we are very much interested in how this will evolve further. I don't want to comment now because the Koreans are themselves at this moment trying to stabilize the situation. And if necessary, you will hear more from me, but you can be assured that for us that relationship with South Korea is key. Our relationship is ironclad, together with Japan, Australia, New Zealand. That will not change.
Okay, we'll take one last question. Lady on the left, yeah, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Secretary General. Ruslana Brянська, Громадське радіо Київ. Ukraine Minister Andriy Sybiha said the Ukraine needs to protect 19 strategic energy facilities,
Yes.
and needs the same number of air defense systems. Was the supply of these systems discussed at the NATO-Ukraine Council, and maybe there were any decisions on this issue? Thank you.
No, this was absolutely discussed. As you know, we try to do everything we can to help Ukraine in making sure they can fight back what the Russians are doing with their full onslaught on Ukraine, unprovoked. And at the same time, we have to make sure that whatever air defense we can give them is being supplied to Ukraine. This is happening over the last 2.5 years. All the first 1,000 days of this awful full onslaught of Russia, we have been able to provide many air defense systems into Ukraine. And now there is a specific need on the energy infrastructure, because what Russia is trying to do is to weaponize winter again in this fight against Ukraine. So this was discussed last night. As you know, in the world, we do not have a sort of overflow of supply of air defense systems. So that means that you always have to make sure that you prioritize. But there was a clear agreement on the table last night that to help Ukraine, particularly with its infrastructure, has to be a priority. And I'm confident that allies will follow up in the coming days and weeks in making sure that whatever they can supply to Ukraine will be supplied.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. See you later at the post-ministerial press conference.
Yeah.
angekommen. Was wollen Sie mir sagen? Diese Frage haben Sie mir gestern gestellt. Da habe ich Ihnen schon gesagt, dass wir darüber reden müssen. Wir haben gestern Abend ja auch zuerst ein Treffen gehabt mit dem jordanischen König und Erbprinz. Man soll wissen, dass, und das habe ich auch im Saal gesagt, dass vor allem, wenn jeder sagt, dass wir das, was in Gaza passiert, aufhören sollen, dass es auch im Saal Leute gibt, die mit Vetorechte alle internationalen Initiativen blockieren. Vor 10 Tagen war im Sicherheitsrat eine Abstimmung, 15 Mitgliedern, 14 haben dafür gestimmt, einer hat gevetot. Und diese Frage habe ich dem Herrn Blinken stellen müssen. Und wir haben auch auf europäischer Ebene Leute, die immer Schwierigkeiten haben, wenn wir irgendwas machen möchten, um mehr Frieden in Gaza probieren zu bekommen. Also ich will nicht sagen blockieren, aber es schwierig machen. Und für mich ist wichtig, dass wir da fortkommen. Es hat ja auch keinen Sinn, dass wir uns alle beschweren über die Situation. Und wenn es dann eine Möglichkeit gibt, um was zu stimmen, dann einer es nicht macht und alles blockiert.
Wie besorgt sind Sie über China und Chinas Sabotageversuche in Europa?
Ich war letzte Woche in China. Ich glaube, es ist wichtig, mit denen ehrlich zu sein, mit den Chinesen. Sie können nicht sagen, dass sie neutral waren. Ich habe auch dem Außenminister letzte Woche die Frage gestellt. Sie sagen ja, sie wären ja neutral mit Russland und Ukraine. Wann haben Sie zum letzten Mal den Zelensky in Beijing eingeladen? Und dann bin ich mal gespannt auf die Antwort.
Yesterday you had a dinner and could you tell us, did you talk on Syria? During the dinner?
I didn't had this opportunity to hear that. It was about Ukraine.
Okay, only Ukraine.
No,
Okay.
we had before the discussions about Syria with the
Any
King of
conclusion?
Jordan. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Good morning. So today we continue with our NATO ministerial. We will have a discussion on Russia, on hybrid threats. This year there were 500 suspicious incidents in Europe. Up to 100 of them can be attributed to Russia, hybrid attacks, espionage, influence operations. We need to send a strong signal to Moscow that this won't be tolerated, and we can see also a price in the frequency of those attacks, so it is very dangerous. So this is my message for today. We have to continue contain Russia.
Your countries are very strong in tackling hybrid threats. What would you like to see other NATO members do in this area?
Acknowledge it and to be ready to face it, to take different kind of measures. A lot of proposals is in the air. So, for example, Czechia proposed in the EU to limit the movement of Russian diplomats and the family members and technical staff. So things like that. You know, nothing new, but we just need to do it.
How concerned are you about Chinese involvement when it comes to hybrid attacks on NATO allies?
So this is the topic of cybersecurity and emerging technologies. I think it's clear that we need to be ready to protect our technologies and protect our cyber world. So yes, it is concerning. Yes, Anna?
Mark Rutte ya como secretario general.
So in Czech. My jsme včera měli večeři, kde jsme diskutovali o tom, jak podporovat Ukrajinu, co můžeme udělat. Mluvilo se i o členství v NATO, nicméně plná shoda na tom nebyla. Uděláme to potom, jo? So any more English, please? Okay, thank you.